You aren't being a proper woman, therefore you must be a witch. You must be a witch.
Happy full moon.
Oh my gosh. Happy fullness and moonness.
It's the March full moon is the worm moon, which, I mean, it's maybe not as like razzle dazzle as a wolf moon or as pretty as a strawberry moon, but I love the idea of the worm moon. It's like underground. It's like industrious. No one can see what it's doing, but it's like responsible for so much of what's happening.
Yeah, I like that. I like that, making moves in the dark. I'll take that.
Yeah, so happy worm moon, everybody.
Yeah, up where I live, I don't know if it's like this where you are, Amy. The snow is covered in areas where the sun is hitting it with these tiny little bugs, like little tiny snow bugs that all flourish as soon as it gets a little bit warm.
Like actual insects, or are you using bug as like a metaphorical?
No, real insects.
Oh, wow. Life.
Yeah. Look closely next time you see, when you're walking in the woods and you see like kind of a black patch, because we're in the woods. There shouldn't be like soot on the snow, but it kind of looks like it. And then you look close and you realize it's all moving and jumping, and they're just like tiny little snow bugs. It's just that time.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of those, but for those of you listening who follow us on Instagram, you saw the insane crystal castle that is being built around my house by nature right now. It's crazy. It's like, the icicles are really beautiful, but I also like, my roof is leaking. Yeah. So as with everything, they have their pros and cons, but it really is like when I look out my kitchen window, it's like an ice prison because the stalactites, I can never remember stalactites and mites, which is up and which is down. But anyway, they're like forming these like bars across the window.
Just spectacularly beautiful bars. We have ice dams like crazy on our roof too. And we have water coming in one part, and it's like, we were freaking out about it. And then we were like, also, like, this is the project of the life that we have chosen. Like, we chose to buy a crazy old DIY house in the woods. You guys basically built your DIY house in the woods. And like, this is the life that we're going to live, is constantly fixing and building and being inundated by nature. And when we saw it that way, we were really happy, because it is still something we are like thrilled to choose. And now we just, it's the constant work, and that's what we're doing. That's what the project is.
Yeah, it works out for me because I'm not someone who will go to the gym, but I will shovel snow for 2 hours a day, every day. For 6 months. So, again, like with everything, there are pros and cons. It's a lot of work, but at least I get my cardio in. Yeah.
I feel like this subject is, and like the lesson that I'm telling myself I'm taking from this subject, this constant learning, is very related to the news that we have for this episode.
Yes, and that news also has a pro and a con. So yeah, let's dive in. Announcements, everyone. March full moon 2020 announcements with Amy and Risa of the Missing Witches podcast.
This is the Missing Witches podcast, by the way.
Yeah, announcements. Risa, tell the story.
Oh my God, I'm so excited I get to tell this. And also it's sort of terrifying because it makes it real. The TDLR of it is we're writing a book.
Yeah.
It's quite incredible. We basically, shared our podcast in a Facebook group called Binders Full of Women Writers. You're not supposed to talk about Binders Full of Women Writers, but you can look it up. It's a
secret group.
It's a secret, massive group that's not a secret anymore.
Much like Fight Club.
Yeah, and just said, my co-creator and I have an interdisciplinary occult witch history podcast, and there's a lot of writing and research that's been done for it, and I think it could make a cool book, but we have no idea how to do it. And a bunch of people replied, maybe you should self-publish, or maybe you should look into this. And then someone replied, Hi, I'm an acquisitions editor looking for interdisciplinary witch history. Could you please send me a message? And this was, after literally doing a spell, a ritual that I can talk about, where I wrote every day for like a month, that I wanted to find a soulmate editor and a soulmate publisher. And then I realized in talking to Amy one day that she was my soulmate editor, that we had so much fun writing together. And then this publisher popped up and we're in love with them. We're super excited, and it's scary because I do feel like a baby witch who's just like sharing their research notes, that's like what our project is. But that seems to be like enough of a reason to make a book, to be a baby witch sharing your research and your love. So that's what we're doing.
Yes, especially with a topic as vast as magic. I mean, there are certainly people who know everything about one thing, but we're sort of more, we know one thing about everything kind of people. Yeah. And so that can be a little intimidating, like when you have a book, you somehow have to take on this, like, I am an authority on this subject. And Risa and I have always been very clear that all you listeners are with us on our learning journey. We don't come as gurus on the mountaintop. We're soldiers in the trenches next to you, just telling you about what we've learned. So it's intimidating, but it's also really exciting. Shout out to North Atlantic Books.
Yeah. Yeah. Shout out to North Atlantic. They're rad. We're super excited about their vision for the book, and they work as a collaborative, consensus-based, nonprofit indie publisher. So we truly found our witchy home with them. So that's kind of the news, and I guess we'll tell you more about it as we go forward. And if you're listening to this and you have advice on writing a book or things you want to read about, let us know. I feel like I don't want to talk too much about what the subject is. Do you feel like we should tell people?
Well, some of it is based on the podcast that you listeners have already heard, but we definitely have expanded those scripts and we've added a bunch to it. I think we'll keep it a little mysterious for now, Risa. What do you think?
Okay, good. Yeah, I love a little mystery. I think that our goal is to make it something that will offer you a lot of windows and doors into your own future research journeys and into your own practice and out into the world of magic. And I think it's something that if we do our jobs right, will help build community and build, love and adventure and links in this kind of project. And I'm going to stop talking about it. I have so much writing to do, so that's nerve-wracking. But it is, it's like I was saying about the house, like this is the project. Like you get to do your dream project. You move to the woods and now water's coming in the roof and that's what you asked for.
Be careful what you wish for.
That's the project. So I'm excited to do the writing, and that's the project that I've always wanted to do. So I remember Amanda Yates Garcia, the Oracle of Los Angeles, talking about her process writing her book and saying, it was like she was coming on her knees every day, like kind of bloody to the goddess and like asking for help in this work that was so much harder than she thought it was going to be. And I really relate to that.
Yeah. I mean, I find like some days I'll finish my day job and I'll be like, I don't want to write. It's fine. I just won't write today. It's fine. And then I'll, sort of wake up in front of my computer, like 1,000 words deep into something new. Yeah. And sometimes I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to roll on this. And I sit down and it's just flashing cursor. So it is tempting to like, look to some higher power for, the inspiration to make something amazing. And I think probably for all writers, I don't know, I can only speak for myself, but from my like semi-traumatic childhood, I sort of assumed for a very long time that like nobody cared about what I had to say. So, there was really like, why would I write a book? Nobody could conceivably care about what I have to say for more than a few minutes. But the podcast is really like, some of the emails that we get are like y'all tell us about what it means to you, what we're doing, and then that feeds our desire to do what we're doing. And it very is like very much an exchange of energy. One of our listeners wrote us an email that she listens to the podcast with her daughters, and her daughters recognize our voices. That's Risa and my voices as the ancestors. I'm doing their quotes. And that just really got to me. I mean, a legacy is something that we have to keep in mind at all times, you know, when we're making choices. Like, we don't know. We've seen with so many of the witches that we've profiled on the podcast that, like, you know, in their lifetime they were demeaned. Only years later have they been, you know, exalted. So we can't always be looking for that, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like reinforcement or like feedback. Like sometimes it doesn't. We saw this with Maria Gimbutas as well. You know, that she was horse feathers until DNA science came along, and then she was younger horse feathers. So again, all this in a roundabout way to say, like, everybody maybe should write their book whether or not they feel like anybody cares about what they have to say or not. Yeah. Maybe that's the lesson, but definitely one of the magical lessons of this for me has been just that Risa just put this post on Facebook, and I even said to our editor, like, this process has seemed so like unlabored, you know, that I felt like I was missing something, or that, you know, that I was doing something wrong, because the pieces really just fell into place. And I think that that's a good lesson about just like speaking your truth and speaking your desires. If you keep them to yourself, then surely like no one is going to show up in the comment section and say, you know, no one's going to come to the couch on your basement and offer you what you're looking for. But if you speak it into the world, or even if you write it down, you're manifesting it. You're making an idea a tangible material thing, even if you're just writing it down on a piece of paper or on a Facebook wall. And there's a lot of power in that.
Yeah. I mean, there's a huge amount of power in you, like just in you as a person, you know, I mean.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
No, she's talking to you guys. She's talking to y'all.
Well, I was seeing you in my mind when I was saying it, Amy, but I was talking to all. You know, I'm talking to myself and talking to my childhood self. You know, I think that's like, you know, my mom recently was talking about just her anxieties as a parent, and we were sharing that, and just the words that came out of her mouth were, "I failed," you know, and she's saying that to me, and I'm like, what do you mean you failed parenting me? Like, I feel like I'm okay.
Because again, you know, I have my own trauma, but I would read that as an insult.
We're like, what do you mean, Mom?
I failed as a parent. Thanks.
But, you know, she was talking about a specific moment where, like, I was playing outside, and she was 21 or whatever, as a mom, 22. She got a phone call. She went inside. She came back and I was gone, you know, and I think that's haunted her. And I was fine. I took a long walk with a big dog, and they found me a little while later. But in my head, it really kind of lit up for me this feeling I have of like, I have to be perfect, you know. She kind of said that too, like, I demand 100% success and I failed, you know. And I was like, oh, that's a thing for me. Like and I want to like I'm writing a lot about burning our husks right now, because the chapter I'm writing, and I just want to burn that away. I just doing rituals and writing and thinking and dancing and shaking and crying to kind of burn that feeling away of like, I demand 100% perfection. Like, also, I don't believe in that as a philosophy, or, you know, as a political philosophy. I think that's paralyzing. Like, we have to keep doing the best bits we can every little bit and be gentle with ourselves so that we can do the next bit. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, parenting an infant, it is kind of life or death. Like, if you fail at parenting an infant, then like
Terrifying.
You know,
Like, don't fucking walk away. I get that. Like, okay, don't do that.
But we can, like, there's like safety and like life and death, and then there's like, you know, the rest of everything.
Right. And then there's like, you know, the mistakes that we make, and then there's like beating ourselves up about them for the rest of our lives, to the point where it can be paralyzing, and it can kind of become a generational curse, you know, where you're making this framework where you have to be perfect or don't be, you know. And I think we need to liberate ourselves from that.
Yeah, like an academic grading system, like an 80% is still like an A.
Yeah.
You know, but in our psyches, like 99% is a failure. You know, we'll focus on that 1%, the one thing that we did wrong, that one time when your mom took her eyes off you for, you know, 3 minutes out of 10 years.
And I mean, I also completely get and relate to what she was saying. Like, I, you know, I'm not judging her for saying that or feeling that. Like, that constant terror is very much a part of parenting for me. But yeah, I don't know. That's just tied to me with this idea of this larger project in my head right now of like, it's okay for me to just share the things I'm curious about in the clearest and most beautiful language I can manage, and for me to not be an expert on those things, and for me to just think that they're fascinating and beautiful little bits of crystal that I've picked up, and that's just all it's going to be. And someone thinks that's worth listening to, so I'm going to keep doing it, you know?
Yeah. And just while I was listening to you speak this idea, I'm just coming to this now, so forgive me, listeners, if it's not as succinct. And I even tripped over that word, so obviously succinct is not going to be the thing. It's probably going to be more succinct. But, you know how, like we opened this conversation sort of with me talking about my fear of being an authority or having to be an authority, but I've always been pretty anti-authority. So like,
right
now I feel like I can burn that with your husks. Like, yeah, no, because there is no one authority on any subject. Once again, especially magic. I mean, you know, we don't even have the resources to go back 20,000 years to see what kind of magic was being made then.
Right. And it's part of the project, you know, when we talk, when we write right now, and we talk a lot, and I don't know if we've talked about it on the podcast that much in the past, but like part of the interest for me and for us is feminist history. And that's not just telling the stories of women, but how does the narrative of history change if we try to include ideas that were excluded by patriarchy and colonization? Like, so how does that dominant authoritative voice get turned upside down and shook open when we find these ideas that were excluded, not just the people, but their perspectives, their perception, their vision of reality? Like, that's part of what is so fascinating to us and what we went looking for, you know? So it's okay, I think, and it's part of the methodology and part of the purpose and part of the book and part of the podcast is to not know and not be right and go looking for things that were disregarded, you know?
Yeah. And I think part of the push too was that the more we looked into these witches, the more that we found that we had heard of the men that they associated with. You know, all the male members of their posses, we had heard of them. They were household names. You know, I'm thinking like Crowley and Ram Dass, but the women were missing from the story. Long before we started this project, you remember this, Risa, I got this book. I won't name it because I can't remember the title, but the book was about how the occult had influenced rock and roll music. Very much up my alley. I was super excited to read the book. And I remember, Risa, you were like, oh, you know, I'm next on the list. Definitely give it to me when you're done. And I never did because I never finished it because there were no women in it.
Yeah.
Like,
It's just this glaring, infuriating oversight.
Yeah.
And it's everywhere.
Especially because when you think of a witch, immediately you are going to conjure some kind of female form, generally speaking. I'm not being gender essentialist here. I definitely think that witch is a gender neutral term. But in your mind, if you think witch, if you think occult, and maybe it's just me, but the image that comes to my mind is a femme one, and this was just simply missing from the stories until we went digging and digging and digging and digging in the snow.
Yeah, digging in the snow. So that's the news. So I guess the other piece of that news
The con to the pro
is we decided that we really want to do a good job of the book, which seems like kind of obvious and fair, and that we couldn't really do that and do new Missing Witches, like history-based episodes for this season at the same time, because basically the book is due to the publishers in June. So we were just like, it's not possible. We both work jobs. You guys may not know that, but we both work like jobs. So this is our second job and we don't get paid for it, and we fucking love it. And we sit like under mountains of books and research and swallowing the stuff, and we just want to do a good job. So we do want to shout out to our patrons though, because thanks to our patrons, it doesn't actually cost us money. Almost. I think we're almost breaking even at this point. So thank you to our patrons who make it so that like it doesn't cost us money. Our patrons are angels. Yeah, good point. They are angels. We adore them. And it's stopped being money out of pocket to do the work. So that's a game changer, and you're beautiful. And the notes that you guys write us keep us going in the darks of the winter. And sleep.
So we're going to keep doing full moon interviews. We're going to keep doing Sabbath specials. We're going to keep doing giveaways for our patrons. We have another one lined up for Ostara.
Yeah, we have some interviews we're really excited about. So that'll be what we do to stay connected and in each other's ears and hearts just through this season. And then we have like a crazy list of witches that we're really excited to delve into doing the stories for. So we're excited for our next season. But this one, we'll try to share little sneaks of what we're working on. And if you are a witch who's listened to this and thought that you knew someone we should interview, or that, maybe you weren't totally confident, but you thought we should probably get to talk to each other, and that you have a story or a take on these things, stop hesitating to write us and just write us. We answer every email. We love hearing from you so much. And let's have more conversations. Let's celebrate that this season.
I also specifically would like to read y'all's witch poetry. So email us at missingwitches@gmail.com, or if you post it on Instagram or Facebook, tag us. I'm really feeling this like need for witch poetry in my life right now. More. I should actually say more witch poetry in my life. I think it's stuff starting to melt, and I just... is it Contact? The Jodie Foster movie, where it's a sci-fi movie. For those of you who haven't seen it, she basically it's impossible to explain, but she goes and sees like the furthest reaches of the universe. And she's staring out into this like gorgeous, like purple and white and pink and all the unimaginable colors of this galaxy that she's looking at. And she sort of chokes and she says, "They should have sent a poet." And so that's how I'm feeling looking around right now. I'm like, they should have sent a poet. So everybody, send me your poet. Be the poet that gets sent to us at missingwitches@gmail.com.
I love that. That's obviously the title for this episode. And Jodie Foster is obviously like a goddess witch who I adore.
Yeah. Yeah, we love Jodie. Shout out Jodie Foster. Shout out Carl Sagan, who wrote the book Contact. So that might actually be like an actual Carl Sagan quote, which also would not surprise me. For those of you listening, if you've never heard of Carl Sagan, just Google him. I'm not going to do him any justice here in this moment. But let's recap. It's the full moon. It's the worm moon. We are industriously turning underground, still under the blanket, but turning and turning. Missing Witches signed a book deal with North Atlantic Books that we're super insanely excited and freaked out about. So we are not going to produce scripted episodes this spring, but we will be returning for Mabon in September with those scripted episodes. All of you, I mean, one of our guiding principles when Risa, you first came to me with the idea for this project and basically our mantra that has helped us make decisions throughout how long have we been doing this, babe? Year and a half?
A year and a half. It feels so much longer.
I was like 10 years, 6 months, was our podcast, our rules.
Yeah.
So we're making up the rules as we go along, but it's nice to know that we are beholden only to you, our listeners, and our contract with you is only that we do our best to come with compassion and do justice to these stories that we're.
Yeah, I think our rallying cry from episode 1 has been to not fuck it up too much.
Not fuck it up too much. And, we're human. And again, y'all are with us on this learning process. I'm just going to repeat this, but, we're not gurus on the mountaintop. We are soldiers in the trenches. We're next to you. We're trying to figure this all out. And we're going to these real human beings, whose stories resonate more with me than stories of deities personally. And I know that a lot of modern witches feel the same. So we're going to these real and actual people to see what they really and actually did and how it really and actually changed the world.
Yeah. And that's what we're going to be working on.
That's what apparently we're always going to be working on because every time you find a witch, you find 6 more. It definitely is a tree of life with twigs and branches. And all of you out there who are listening are definitely twigs and branches on this tree. Like we said, sometimes you think nobody cares about what you have to say, and then you find out that people's children are referring to you as their ancestor. And this disembodied voice from the sky that comes and tells them about these stories of the people that laid a foundation for us, and our practice and our notions about compassion and about oneness and
Yeah. So this full moon episode is sent with love and blessings and hope and hard work and history. This whole episode and this moon and the industriousness of the worms under the snow and the little bugs on top and our own strong hearts as we make these chrysalises and then as we figure out how we're going to shed them and fly and be beautiful and share our stories. We send all of that and more to Ruby and her children and all of us baby witches listening, the little babies in our hearts that still need our love and care. We send this beautiful, bright moon energy into all of our hearts and all of the children that will come after us and all the children that came before. Yes. And definitely, if you think of yourself as a baby witch, don't infantilize yourself. We are all learning and we are all growing, and babies are some of the wisest human beings that I have ever met. So I don't see baby witch as an infantilizing term. I don't think you should either. We are all just learning how to become. Endlessly. Yes. Endlessly becoming. Oh my God. Yes. 1,000,000%. Happy full moon, everybody. Happy full moon. We love you. We love you.
You must be a witch.